Oh boy, Donald Trump is already facing a limited gag order in his New York civil fraud trial, and it is only day 2. My colleague Laura Jarrett is here on what you need to know.
It was his comments on social media that prompted a dramatic ruling from the judge after Mr. Trump posted a photo of the judge's law clerk posing with top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer. The judge ordering the post on Truth Social removed, saying personal attacks on any member of my court staff are unacceptable. Consider this a gag order. The Republican frontrunner again going after the Democratic Attorney General who brought the lawsuit.
Judge Engoron has been given false and extremely misleading information about my net worth. Private company, nobody's supposed to know my net worth.
A net worth the state says was deliberately inflated to get more favorable loan rates from lenders, while Mr. Trump's legal team says real estate valuations are subjective.
As a reminder, here is just some of what Trump has said lately about the courts that are involved in his cases.
The Attorney General is a racist, Letitia James. This rogue judge, a Trump hater, he's a Democrat club politician. He's a Democrat operative. This is a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a rigged court. He's put there to do a job on Trump. It's a witch hunt. It's a disgrace. We have a corrupt attorney general in this state. She should probably be dismissed also because she's terrible and grossly incompetent, as I've said.
With us for more, Katie Benner, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the New York Times. Tristan Snell, former Assistant Attorney General for New York State, where he helped lead the investigation and prosecution of Trump University. And my dear friend and partner forever, you know, we rarely get a good high five, so I'm very proud of us right there. Ali Velshi, MSNBC chief correspondent. You know him as host of Velshi, and he is the editor of the new book, The Trump Indictments, the 91 criminal counts against the former president of the United States. I currently have an autographed copy, which says, Stephanie, you are a nut, but you are my nut. And for that insult, you're not getting the first question.
All
Tristan,
right,
it's your first visit to the 11th hour, so help us out. You led a Trump-related investigation to the well-known now Trump-defunct university. What is your reaction to what you're seeing, what he's saying about the courts right now?
None of this is new. This is his standard first move for anything, is to just go attack the other side, go attack that litigator.
His jam.
That's what he does. We're seeing it now with more of a microscope on it. We're seeing him in the courthouse saying these things, not just posting on Truth Social. We're seeing both. He's posting these things and then he's ranting and raving in the courthouse. Take that person ranting in the courthouse, take him out of his suit, out of his stupid hair, all of that stuff, and put him in, like, you know, shabby clothes, he'd be pulled away. And he'd be placed in contempt. You wouldn't get a warning. You wouldn't get a gag order. He'd be hauled off to Rikers for the night. That's not happening here because they're still treating him with special treatment. But we're seeing up close what he's been doing this whole time and what he did 10 years ago in our Trump University case, what he's been doing in all of these cases. It's all happening.
How much of a grand slam home run is this special treatment, Ali? Because even if the judge is putting this limited gag order on him or he's being told to sit down and shut up inside the courtroom, we're watching him outside the courtroom.
Sure.
Push lie after lie about his net worth to a giant audience, just like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, when in front of a big giant audience and to his NRA-loving base, he's in South Carolina, bang, 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 pretending like he's buying a gun.
While under indictment 4 times.
While under indictment. And then privately, his legal team and his PR team say, by the way, he didn't actually buy a gun.
Yeah.
But he's getting the upside of the megaphone of lies.
Yeah, and in fact, I would think no judge wanted to be the one to give him a gag order or, frankly, to enforce that gag order, because nobody wants to be the one to send a couple of cops to put the cuffs on Donald Trump if they have to. He insulted, he put a picture of the judge's staff. Like, at this point, he forced this guy's hand to do something. But yeah, nobody wants to play into this because they know anything you do to Donald Trump, he'll post about it. He'll find some way around it. And no judge and no prosecutor wants to spend all their time dealing with this stuff because it does work in his favor. He somehow convinces his base that he is getting special treatment on the wrong, in the wrong direction. I don't know. And I worry that even if there are successful prosecutions in some of these cases, not this New York case because that's a civil suit, but even if there are, Donald Trump will play this to his advantage. It is all part of the grievance narrative, and I don't know how you get out of this one. I think justice has to just move slowly and properly here and make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Katie, what's your take on the judge's move?
The move to gag Donald Trump, I mean, I think that she felt forced because she was genuinely worried that her clerk was going to be harmed. I mean, the person was named. I won't repeat this person's name. The person was named. There was an implicit threat, and this can't go on. But I think to everybody's point about this being Donald Trump's playbook, it's true that in some ways it is politically helping him. But if there's a judge who feels that they need to enforce a gag order with a fine or even a night or two in jail, it's really interesting because what happens next? I think this is what we haven't seen. We haven't seen something like this behavior colliding with a campaign. Do the Republicans who are trying to defeat him, do they double down? Do they stop treating him with kid gloves? I mean, seeing a candidate in jail is a really powerful thing. Seeing somebody punished in that way is an extremely powerful thing. And there is the wild card of his own supporters. I mean, we haven't seen anything truly violent or dangerous since January 6th, but this is a lot of heated rhetoric. He is asking his followers to attack people. He is telling his followers that the criminal justice system is illegitimate. He is saying that judges are illegitimate, and he's saying that whatever decision is made is going to be a crime against him. So I think that what we're going to see is a really tenuous few months also for the presidential race and for the other candidates as they decide whether or not they take care of whether or not they respond to this problem, which is in some ways both a criminal justice problem, but also an inherently political problem.
Tristan, Trump says he'll testify at the right time. Yep. I cannot imagine he would testify under oath. Is he just saying that to flex for his base, to make people believe he's running the table?
There is no right time for him to testify. Certainly his lawyers don't want him to testify. I don't know if he's actually going to do it. I think you're right that it's a flex. Just even saying that he might is a flex. If he does do it, what does he have to gain? It's entirely political. I think he loses legally, but we have to remember, he's already lost this case. The very worst outcome.
This is the most important part. He has already
He's
lost
already
the case.
lost. He already lost. The worst outcome that could have come from this trial has already been handed down, and that's for the corporate licenses to be canceled and for the properties are likely going to be liquidated. These properties are probably going to get sold at auction. That's probably what's going to happen. We don't know that for sure yet, but that's probably where this is headed. So he's already really, really in trouble. He's not really going to add that much more to the trouble by testifying, but it'll give him, unfortunately, a chance to be on the, basically have a chance to say all of his crazy stuff and flex in front of his audience and then turn around and raise donations off of it.
What about the golly gee, dum-dum, I don't know stuff? Trump, I don't know, ask Alan Weisselberg, right? Anything that has to do with numbers, then Alan Weisselberg, well, I'm not actually a CPA. And even Don Jr., yes, I went to Wharton, but I can't spell gap. Does that fly in a court of law?
No, and they tried it today because under cross-examination,
there's 2 A's in that gap.
There was an accountant who was testifying that he, based his returns on the information that the Trumps gave him, and Weisselberg. And under cross-examination, the lawyer was saying, the Trump lawyer was saying, well, it's up to you. You're the accountant. You should know what's right or wrong. Well, first of all, every American knows that doesn't hold up in any court. But back in 2001, 2002, there were all those corporate scandals in America, and both courts and Congress, with the Sarbanes-Oxley bill, made it very clear that ignorance of what's in your books is not a defense at all. It's not a defense. And by the way, accountants, it's very clear in this country, accountants can't be involved in the fraud, but it's garbage in, garbage out. If you give your accountants not full information, that's not their responsibility. And on top of all of this, you have Michael Cohen, who went before Congress and testified that no financial decisions were made in that company without Donald Trump's approval and consent. So
it wasn't some big giant corporation. It was a little circle
of 14 people.
Correct.
The entire thing was 14 people. He was involved in every single decision. He micromanaged everything. And at the end of the day, as the law says, as y'all are pointing out, the buck stops with the CEO, and you are responsible legally for what gets put into those statements.
Correct. And now you have to sign it. And it's
with his dumb toddler signature.
Yeah, you actually have to sign it.
We're not going to say dumb toddler. We're not. It was his signature, right, left, or center. It was his signature. All right, that is all the time we have. I'm sorry, Katie. These two hogged all the time.
Katie.
You know what, Katie? Like everything in life, blame it on Ali Velshi.